All right. Well, I just want to welcome everybody, the Amici band, to the Italian American Stories podcast. Thank you guys for coming on and doing this interview. I'm looking forward to it.
It's good to be here.
Yeah. Well, if you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves to the audience, that'd be great.
Okay, I'll go first. I'm Stephen Pishner. Some of you know me as Stefano online, and I sing and play keyboards, and have been with the band since the start.
Nice.
Okay, Chris?
Chris Tassis. I'm the bass player and sing, and that's what I do.
Great.
Jewel?
Mark. I'm the drummer and sing background vocals, and I'm the newest member of the band, if you want to call it that. It's still been over 10 years now, so yeah, I've known these guys. Chris and Steve and I all went to high school together, and nice. So I played with them in the past and heard them play many festivals and shows and things before I was a member. So my roots with them way back.
Awesome. Yep. That's very cool.
Yep. And my name's Jewel Karenbar. I'm the rhythm guitar and vocals.
Great. All right. Well, it's nice to officially meet all of you. So thank you again for joining.
Well, good. Thanks for having us.
Appreciate being here.
Be here.
Yeah.
So Chris and I are in the same town. We're in Clarksburg, West Virginia, which is in the north central part of West Virginia. Chris is one of the originals. And Mark is in Richwood, West Virginia. He's 2 hours south of us. And Jewel Karenbauer is 2 hours north of us in Wheeling, West Virginia. So it's a little bit of a chore to get the band together sometimes, but we do make it work. And but it's just good to do some things like this. That way we can introduce ourselves more to a wider community and get to know, some of the work that you do in the area of Italian American entities, and in this case stories. And we've got stories.
That's great. Well, and I'm in Grand Junction, Colorado, and have a little bit of the Colorado audience, so that'll help broaden that out for you too, hopefully.
That's good. Yeah, I think we talked last time that when people say Italian and they say Colorado or they say West Virginia, they scratch their heads.
Exactly. Yeah, it just doesn't, if it's not New York kind of thing, people are like, there's Italians there. So
New York or Philly, one of the others.
Yeah. Doing the research that I do, I find Italian Americans that, everywhere. I've done episodes on Alaska, and I'm working on one right now in Iowa. So
well, good.
Pretty cool. But speaking of Italian American stories, since this is that type of a podcast, I just usually always ask my guests to just tell a brief story about your Italian American experience, childhood, memory, recipe, favorite holiday, whatever. So you guys want to share a story?
I can start. My life has been music. So Italian music was always on in the house. We also used to have a radio show that used to come on from Fairmont, West Virginia, called the Italian Hour, which was more than an hour all the time. And it was by a guy named Nick Fantasia. And he had this radio station. And I would always hear these Italian songs on the radio that had the poorest reception at my grandfather's little radio that he'd have on the porch when I'd go to my grandparents, on my mother's side at least. He always played this every Sunday, and they used to tell me, "This is coming from Italy." Now it's coming from Fairmont. It was like 20 minutes away, but I listened a lot to Italian music, and I had a lot of Italian records in the house, and so I was kind of attracted to it. It was interesting to be able to sing, to play, to sing, and to then do it in another language, and another whole group of people could listen and understand and appreciate it and connect with you. So that has been my thing, and then it's fanned out to what we're doing now. So. Anyway.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love it.
All right. So Chris was with me when we first started, and we did. Chris, you might want to talk about the first festivals and things like that.
Yeah. I was introduced to Italian music, of course, through Steve when we formed this band. Actually, one of my special memories with the band especially is just a recent one, our 40th year of playing our local festival.
Oh, wow.
Just thinking back 40 years kind of struck me like, wow, we've been doing this a long time. But it's very special to be able to do this and entertain. And some of the people we entertained 40 years ago, their children are now in the crowd enjoying the same music that their parents did. And it was really special. It really is. I mean, it's a lot of fun. It's it's always an enjoyable weekend, and to see everybody and the culture, the food, the music. And it was just a special memory this year.
That's awesome. 40 years. That's really cool. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, who's next? Mark?
Yeah, sure. I know everybody leaned towards the music thing so far, and I love playing the Italian music. I got exposed to it through hearing Steven and Amici do this stuff when I was younger. I did hear some of the Italian music, but living in the neighborhood that I lived in I used to live in Clarksburg, where Steve and Chris live now, but to move over to maybe to the food side of it, the neighborhood that I used to live in they called it Kelly Hill, and it was just kind of a Italian community, like a little Italy type community. Almost everyone that lived in that few block radius, which isn't far from where Steve and Chris still live, that it was just all Italians basically, and it was like a little Italy kind of thing. And so I grew up with the Italian cookies and the Italian food. Mm-hmm. My grandmother and my aunts and everybody cooked every day, and I thought everybody grew up that way. Until I got older and realized, how many people were eating McDonald's and that kind of thing. But when I grew up, it wasn't about eating out. It was about home cooked meals, and about everybody, and the baking and that kind of thing during Christmas was just paramount. There's just so much, and like you see when people always spoof Italians, they always something to eat, and they have like a smorgasbord of stuff, and that's exactly how it was. And one of the festivals that we play, we just played recently in December, the Feast of the Seven Fishes. It's based around that movie. I don't know if you've seen that movie.
The one on Netflix?
Yeah.
And I tell people, I'm like, watching that movie that's exactly how it was. It's not a little bit like how it was. It's pretty much exactly how it was and that movie is set in a time when we would have been in high school, I think, and in that era. And so that stuff led to me I ended up going to culinary school, and I've been a chef my whole life as my other career besides music. That's what I do. And, I know that it was those older Italian women, my aunts and the people in that neighborhood, I started learning how to cook from them.
Yeah.
Then that led to me wanting to, they actually were the ones that kind of talked me into like saying you should go be a chef. And when I did that in the early 90s, it wasn't a big thing yet. There was no Food Network and that kind of stuff. So
sure.
A popular thing at that point quite yet. But growing up Italian, the food is a big deal, and everything's based around that, as you know. And so in the town that we come from, there's a lot of Italian cuisine in that town. Many, many Italian restaurants and Italian themed dishes in the restaurants. And so I've spent most of my life still carrying on those traditions, I guess, still carrying on the traditions that my grandmother, cooking the Christmas Eve dinner, the big Christmas Eve dinners, and continuing that, bringing the food to the masses, helping people gather around food, as well as being a musician and being with Amici and helping carry on the tradition of the Italian music that we do.
Nice. That's amazing. And what town were you talking about?
Clarksburg, West Virginia.
Clarksburg.
Is where we're all. Steve and Chris and I are all from that town.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, I'm gonna have to make a trip out there sometime.
Oh yeah.
See that.
We'd be glad to have you. We'll put you in the parade.
Perfect. I'd love it. Come down for the 41st festival, maybe.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
46 this year.
Yeah.
Oh, 46. Okay. Oh, that's right. You guys have been doing it for 40 years together. That's
40
right.
years,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. Jewel?
Yeah. Well, I kind of walked in with the band. I moved to Clarksburg from Wheeling for a job back in the early 90s, and ended up meeting Chris at a bar he was playing in, and ended up they needed a guitar player, and I was like, well, I can play rhythm, but I'm not a lead player. And so I never had heard the Italian music they were doing. And so Steve, listened to me, goes, we'll give you 6 months probation. And it's been 30 years and I'm still on probation. But it's been an awesome experience. I'm German and Italian, so I really didn't grow up with. I tell you, when I first started, Steve's parents were still alive, and we practiced in his parents' living room.
Oh, nice.
So we'd go in there, and then the first thing it was is like, "You eat? Have you eaten? Did you eat?" I'm like, "I'm okay." No, you got to eat before you leave. They'd have food out, and they were just the sweetest people. And one thing about being in Clarksburg, I didn't know anyone. So, being able to play and meet these guys, and they've been lifelong friends since. And the Italian experience has been an awesome thing because everybody brings something to the table. And we've done this a long time. Well, they've done it since the beginning, but being with them and traveling and doing into festivals and doing these things, it's just it's a great feeling to be able to put that kind of music out to the masses.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I think it's so cool that you guys have been doing this festival for 40 years. I mean, you're a staple in your community for that festival. You want to talk about what that festival is?
Well, it's always during Labor Day weekend, but not Labor Day.
Okay.
And we it started. There was a feasibility study done by students from West Virginia University in 1978. And one of the students who was a part of that, her name is Weege Vargo. She was part of that project, and she's on the board, and she's been there from the start, which is interesting because when we talk about the festival, I always tell Weege, who is a friend of all of ours, that she's been there longer than the festival because she was in part of that study. So they did this feasibility study to see, would Clarksburg respond to a festival? It was very Italian. High percentage of Italian people that were still even speaking Italian in the homes. Many of them came from southern Italy, from Calabria, and many of them had coal miners as fathers, but they did other things too. And it was interesting because a woman who had this idea, Merle Moore, who was the head of the library in Clarksburg, who wasn't Italian, she had gone somewhere, I think it was in Michigan. She says, "You know what, Clarksburg ought to have one of these kinds of festivals." And so she came back and she gave the idea to the community and said, "What do you think about this?" And then the study began. And so in the start of it, in 1979, Jerry Vale was the very first singer.
Wow.
And also Joe DiMaggio was friends with the Folio family who were here at Clarksburg. And Joe DiMaggio, came, and he was here a few times. But the place was just packed. I mean, you could even walk around and hear people still speaking Italian, not just Italian, even specific dialects of Southern Italy. And the place was packed. But it was interesting. We didn't know in those days, that the festival was going to last this long. Some people thought it would last 5 years, 20 years, maybe. Now we're going into 46, which is great. And, I was playing all those as a young kid. I think I was in the 6th grade. So I played every year. I either played, for dinners, or I played on the stage, or I played for the coronation and things like that. And so then in 84, the opportunity came about, to play, and we got a few of us together, and here's where we are now, and what's interesting is that we didn't know that we were going to still be doing this. I don't think that we didn't know what we were doing. We just wanted to play music. You know what I mean? We just wanted to play music, and we didn't even get on the stage. We were in the streets,
Wow.
And we had a few other members over the years. John Angotti and Joey Russo were in the original with Chris and I, and we played in the middle of the street, and we played anytime we could play. And sometimes, as the word got out that there's a group of young guys who can play Italian music, but they play rock and roll too, get them, book them. And I remember one weekend, Chris can tell you, we played like 5 times in 3 days.
Wow.
And that wasn't even festival weekend. It's like 5 gigs in 3 days. We were playing supper clubs, and we were playing weddings, and we were playing an opening of a pasta shop that now doesn't exist, but in those days it did. So the 80s were like a big time for the band. And later we did a few little recordings here and there. And as this Italian thing got stronger, we became more confident in what we were doing, and people were more responsive to us. I was still learning how to speak Italian more and more, and to sing Italian. And those are the non-internet days. So to learn an Italian song, you either bought a record or a cassette, and you played it over and over again, and you wrote it out phonetically, so that you could figure out what it is they were saying or singing, and then you had to create the arrangement and figure out the chords. It was all the hard way. Because most of the stuff you couldn't find in print.
Sure, that makes sense.
And even the stuff that you could find in print, I mean, the classics, O Sole Mio, O Marie, Santa Lucia. Okay, those things you could find in print. But as the pop music was coming out of Italy, that you almost could find on the radio in West Virginia somewhere. Once you found, or someone would go to Italy and bring you back a record or a cassette of some kind or something like that. Then you're like, oh, they're doing this, or they're doing that, because there was no Italian TV. Satellite was, few and far between in different.
Sure.
So we came up through these ranks to do what we do the hard way, and I think that's probably why we're as strong as we are today, because it doesn't really faze us to take on a new project or a new song or do something really creative with the music. I think the thing that sets us apart is that we can make the band sound like it's very, very traditional sounding, like Mark would say, like the TV version, or we can go out on the stage and we can hit the high energy button, and now it's Italian on steroids, because it's just, the crowd goes crazy. And I think I sent you in my links in my emails, you can look through that final email I sent you. There's one link in there, and it's from last year, and it's kind of really a nice video snapshot, if you would, is that we had a lot of rain one day during the Italian festival this year, and so our Saturday night show was canceled or preempted or whatever you want to say. So we came back on Sunday, and every member of this band, we're all sitting there standing on stage, going like, what is going on with the crowd? You would have thought like Elvis and the Beatles have arrived at the same time, because the crowd was just electric, and we played the whole show. We played the whole show, and we were ready to walk off the stage, and they're chanting, one more song, one more song, one more song. And we're over time. The festival's ready to close, but nobody's leaving.
Wow.
So, we caught it on the clip, one of the clips that you can watch there it's a YouTube clip I sent you. You can post it if you would like. But anyway, so I go, oh, we'll do one more, and the crowd just erupts like crazy, And I thought, okay. So Mark, you were going to say something.
Oh, no, I just said that people were really upset that they missed there were a lot of people that were really upset that they missed their Amici on Saturday, that festival. But a lot of, it was, we couldn't really, obviously we couldn't play that day. I just heard a beep. I didn't know, but
I don't know what it is.
about the, it was the cutoff. Going back to the festival, the start of the festival thing too, like when you first asked, even before Amici had played, like Steve said, there was a couple years there, because we were all really young. We were still in high school. Steve and Chris were still in high school. I think they're a couple years older than me. I was like in junior high, but we all went to the first festival. And our high school that we went to Notre Dame. And so we also had the Italian American thing, because not too many kids while they're going to high school have to go to mass.
Sure.
Regularly as part of their high school curriculum,
Yeah.
Which that was different. And so that stuff was, and the food at the high school, our cafeteria, our school lunch ladies were all Italian.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That was not your normal average Italian food, and they gave you extra. You got needed, just like it was all. But we in our high school, the town of Clarksburg where the Italian festival is held, our high school sits right on the edge of that town. Like you could literally walk from the high school that we all went to up to the middle of the stage we now play in.
Right.
So it's all right there. It's a tight knit community, and I remember it was big then, but then as the years went on, you brought a lot of other people, because obviously people that aren't Italian, once they got a taste of the food and they got a taste of the music and the atmosphere, the big family atmosphere, and then whatever, we say briti, but fritti, the fried dough. When we went to New York this year, they called it zeppoli. It's like once you get a taste of that fried dough with sugar on it, you're hooked.
You're coming back every year.
Yeah.
The food's a big part of it. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, where Jewel lives, there's an Italian festival that came about 5 years after the Italian festival in Clarksburg, and we go there and play a lot of times. For many years, we went regularly. Then there was like a little pause. Now there's been a resurgence to bring Amici back. And so that's basically in Jewel's neighborhood. Joel, you want to talk a little bit about the Wheeling Festival a little bit?
Well, the Wheeling Festival actually started because they went down to Clarksburg and saw that they had started their festival and thought it was a good idea. So they came back and started it. And I think it's only a couple years older, because they came back and they started it after they saw the Clarksburg Festival. Yeah. So what's nice is they used to be in town, and it really had a different feel back in the day for that, because the town went down to the river, and we would set up on 16th Street, which right on in the town. Now they've moved it to the river, so they've got it's a nice setup. I mean, it's right along the river. It's beautiful, just not a lot of cover if you're in the sun, because it's got everything sitting, but it's turned into a nice festival. We've done it. Well, we did it years before, and then we just started doing it again, but they've kept it up. And actually, I go to the Sons of Italy on Thursday nights. They do a big thing at the festival for sausage sandwiches. They raise money for that, for scholarships. So Thursday night here in Bel Air, Ohio, they have a $10 all-you-can-eat spaghetti.
Oh,
which
cool.
is I've been going over the last couple of weeks. It's good. They do a white sauce or a red sauce, and it's good stuff. But the festival's done, they've done pretty well here. And like I said, it started because they went to Clarksburg and saw theirs.
Nice.
So Steve, go ahead. Steve, I believe it was the Wheeling Festival. The first time we played is when we realized we needed to make some recordings. We played one show. We get off, and there's a line of people there wanting music.
We were
swarmed. That's what kind of got us the idea of saying, hey, there's a lot of people who want to hear the band's music. And that kind of got us to go into the studio and started at the Wheeling Festival, actually.
Yeah.
Oh,
but
cool.
make cassettes.
Clarksburg had heard us a lot, so they know who we are and that. But Wheeling was actually the first time.
We went to first time we went to Wheeling to play. I told the band we're going to play, and they were like, well, okay, it wasn't a big deal. I keep saying, no, I was trying to say, this is a big deal, but they weren't connected. And so after that first show, when we came off those steps onto that stage, there was like, people just swarmed the band and want to know why they hadn't heard us and where we were from, and where were the recordings? Well, we didn't have any recordings. We just went up to play music. Next year we came back with recordings and we sold out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So then, where Jewel was talking about, how they've moved in Wheeling, how they've moved the festival back down to the river there. Behind us, when we play those shows in Wheeling, there are boats in the river. People, they pull up on their boats. They got their food, their wine or whatever, and they're listening behind the stage, and they're floating on the water listening to Amici.
Oh, that's cool.
So they parked their boats there on the river. And one guy they were trying to invite us onto the boat and all this. I was like, I couldn't stay, but I mean, but it's just interesting. So this year we go back to Wheeling in July, and then we go to another festival we haven't played in years called the Feast of San Rocco in Aliquippa. We just got invited to go there. That's in August. And then, of course, the Italian festival in Clarksburg. And there's some rumblings from New York. When they write you an email and they say, see you in 2025, I think there's some hope in that statement there. So
sure.
So perhaps we're headed back for the red carpet. We'll see. And we'd gladly, do it again because it was a great time. So.
Oh yeah, and congratulations to all of you. That's quite the honor to what you guys did in October. That's amazing.
Yeah, and we, it's funny. There are a lot of little things have come from it. Emails here and there, and some eyebrows are raised in some other parts of the country. Like, who is this group, and how does West Virginia work in this situation? But the coverage, on ABC7 and by way of YouTube, I mean, was tremendous. The listening audience, viewing audience between the people there and the people watching on television locally, and I think they also did a simulcast in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and maybe a few other places. Up over 1 million people.
Wow.
We still had to come back into West Virginia and do our jobs when we got done. So
yeah.
But we also had a great time when we left. When you pick the name of a band, I remember Mark's dad is also a musician, and I remember your dad telling me, Mark, that when he would start a band, they wanted to find a clever name for a band, and someone picked up the newspaper, I think it was your dad, and it said Final Edition, so that became a name of a band. So right. I opened up the Italian dictionary and it said Amici. I thought, okay, we'll take this name. Let's give it a try. We didn't know what we were going with it, but we thought we'd try. So Amici. So then we get to New York, and here we are, 40 years later, playing in New York City, the Big Apple. We're right on Fifth Avenue. It's the Italian American dream, the musician American dream, whatever you want to call it, to play in New York City. And we've gotten through to the front of the line where most people are still waiting in the line. But because we took this route of playing ethnic music and took it seriously and try to do it to our best of our ability and remain authentic with it. And then we say, well, it's time. We finished this entire thing. We did some interview. I did an interview with Todd Wharton from there in New York City. And I did an interview with right there on stage with ABC, and then comes time for dinner. So we have to figure out, well, what are we going to do for dinner? So we got out, we packed up everything, we got out, and so we thought, well, where better to go? So we went to the Amici restaurant.
Oh,
in Little Italy.
Yeah.
So here we go, and we took some pictures, and we went in there, and I explained to them who we were and what we were doing, and so now we follow each other on Instagram. And once they figured out who we were, and then they were very kind. They came out and said, "Our desserts on us." So they bought, and the desserts were huge desserts. Now Mark is the biggest food critic in the place, and I think he got a thumbs up on this whole experience. Is that right, Mark?
Yes, I didn't want to interrupt, but I was going to say the food was fantastic. By the way, yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
So if you're in Little Italy, definitely go eat at the Amici restaurant because it was fantastic. Everybody's, we were doing what I ordered myself and what my wife ordered and what we ordered, like, because we were all together there. Chris's wife was with him too, got to come on the trip, like but we, all of us were doing the Italian thing and eating family style too. I tasted a little bit of Steve's, and we're all tasting each other's, and everything was, no matter what it was, all across the board, everybody ordered different things, and still the standard was, the food was fantastic. So
awesome. Yeah, and if you guys had to eat at Amici, I mean, you couldn't eat anywhere else.
so yeah.
Tap that day off, because by that point we were all ready to relax and have a meal. It had been a long day, which not in a bad way, but we started early. We were all day thing, and so it was a really special day from start to finish.
Yeah, we were on stage at 7 a.m. doing a sound check, getting things wired, and then we did one, and I have to tell you, this whole event in New York is put on by the Columbus Citizens Foundation. It's a marvelous organization, and they raise several $1 million to do all kinds of outreach and scholarships and promotion of Italian American and Italian heritage. and they're they were like not far from the stage, so right behind the stage, about I don't know, few steps is the actual place, and it's a beautiful building, with arches and frescoes on the walls, and they had stuff ready for us to eat, of course, and while you're there, it's like, it's funny because you're away from home, but you're at home.
Yeah.
Sure.
And in my experience, as soon as you get there, it's like people look like your cousins, they look like your relatives, they sound like your relatives, they got the hand measure, everything's going on, and then comes the aroma, So they said, well, and where we were, there were few food trucks. Further up Fifth Avenue, there were a lot other booths and things throughout the whole parade route. So where we were, they call it the red carpet. Yeah, you have to have tickets, there's security, there are bleachers. It's kind of like the posh version of where you can go to see the parade. The parade is 3 hours, and you can still watch it on YouTube. Just go to Columbus Citizens Foundation and put in Columbus Day Parade 2024 of October. So the aroma is killing me while we're doing these sound checks. Like, okay, I've had a little bit of breakfast, but something. So when I get on my next break, I thought I'm going to go back and see what's going on. So while I do this, the parade's going by, and we played, like when there was a break to go to commercial or come back from commercial. So I couldn't go too far because they wanted us to stay near the stage. And we're all dressed up in our formals and everything, and we've already taken some pictures here and there. And this aroma, so I'm going back to see what they're cooking. Well, they're cooking arancini, which are fried rice balls. Mm-hmm. And then there was sausage and peppers, which that's the smell that I'm thinking, like, okay, now somebody's playing with me here, I go back there, and I hear people speaking Italian. And not only speaking Italian, but the accent sounds very Calabrian. So I'm thinking, like, this is very. So I go back there and I ask them. I hear them speaking Italian, and I asked them in Italian. I said, "Where are you from?" And they told me. I said, "Well, I have relatives near there too." And would you believe the guy asks me what city, and I told him, and then he says to me, "What's your cousin's name?" And I told him. He says, "I know him."
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
And he did know my cousin Paolo, and it's funny because I'm thinking, like, where on earth do you go?
Yeah.
Now here we are from West Virginia. We have roots or Italian experience, in the blood or the mind or the heart or whatever you want to say. And here we are in the middle of New York City, among where there are 7 million people, and there are many more that are there that day for Columbus Day. And there's a guy who says, "I know your cousin."
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, it's crazy. Now, in the midst of this whole thing about the interviews, this is what was interesting. So, I worked with the people from ABC, and to figure out how we were doing what we were doing. And, the guys can tell you, I'd say, "Okay, get ready. We're going to do this song." No, they're telling them this differently. They would change. We could change, it's live television, so we could change whatever they've asked us to do within seconds. We were doing this. No, we're going to do that, because, they're calling the shots on how fast the parade's moving. And, there's a lot of moving parts. It's a television production. And, so Giada Valenti, who's a singer from Venice, and she sings in Italy. She's in New York. She's in Nashville. She just did something with Vince Gill and Trace Atkins. And, it's kind of like, a mix of, the Italian world and the American world and things like that. She does all kinds of things, but she was the hostess for the day, and the person, doing all the announcing on stage, the MC for the day. And she spoke Italian, of course, and once she knew I spoke Italian, we spoke Italian probably about 99% of the day.
Oh, wow.
Fun person to be with. And she comes up on stage to interview the band, and we're on live television. I'm thinking, like, okay, we keep changing what we're going to be asking because the time limit is changing. And she says to us, "Now, are you all?" She says, "How long have you all been together?" And I said, "Well, the band's been together 40 years." And she says, "And all of you are still friends after 40 years?" And I said, "Yes." And she says, "And your cousin? You said you have a cousin here?" And I said, "Yeah, he's on the drums." And she said, "Well, where does he come from?" And so we were talking back and forth. Little did I know that people were watching in Italy.
Oh, wow.
And people across the street in the bleachers. Some of them had their cameras, their phones live with their relatives doing FaceTime in Italy. because what they did was in this production was this television production is that we would play intermittently throughout, the parade. They said, play for 30 seconds, stop, play for a minute, stop, play for 2 minutes, stop, whatever. So then they teased kind of like throughout the whole thing that, wait for the end because Amici's going to play at the end. So we had our own piece uninterrupted where we played. Well, when we were singing, how many years we played O Sole Mio, and it's funny to sing O Sole Mio now, culminating in 40 years in the city where your relatives first landed was an emotional rush.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I don't know if people, put all those things up, but to me it was. I'm thinking like, I'm doing this, with these guys that we've been doing this where this was an average day to us at home. Now this average day is on stage, 1 million people watching in the city where all the immigrants came through to get us to where we are now. So it's fantastic. And then we did that. And then Todd Wharton from FaceTime with Tom Wharton, he's in the streets going, I need to talk to you. So I go over there and I talk about West Virginia and I talk about Amici and the members of the band and everything. And it was great. And I'm thinking like, this was a great opportunity. I mean, it took some homework to get it, off the page, so to speak. But it's definitely probably one of the biggest days, I'd say. Did you think, guys, that we've played in the many years? I mean,
But I will say, like with our festival and the music, like how Steve's talking about that, and he said earlier, when I said about the Italian music kind of TV version, I guess, a lot of people, if they're thinking about Italian music, if you think, hey, you should listen to this Italian music, or they turn on some Italian music, they might hear some traditional kind of stuff. So maybe the beat behind it is just like I don't want to say but for lack of a better term, like cocktail version kind of, or it's softer. Maybe the percussion in the background is just some claves or a light kind of. It has a lighter sound,
more subtle.
That's not
okay.
Like Chris is an aggressive bass player. If there's a little kind of clave sound there, I'm doing that with a heavy snare drum. Like we are taking these traditional songs and playing them in a much bigger rock format. And even when we're at our own festival, like talking about the festivals and the vibe of the festival, I still feel like I have goosebumps now just thinking about it. When we're up on stage especially at our home Italian festival in Clarksburg, but
sure,
be that way. If the air is just right and you look at the faces down in the streets, you see cousins, but then you see people that maybe it's like all the ancestors, and there's so many people that were there over the years that aren't there anymore, but they're there.
They're there.
Yeah.
There is a certain feeling that you feel like you're in a time machine. Like it could be now, it could be 10 years ago, it could be 40 years ago. You really almost can't tell. It feels exactly the same. It's like, is this 1980? Where am I? Is this the 80s? Is this the 90s? Like it literally just blurs together, I feel. And that same feeling and tradition and the it's in the air, it's palpable,
Yeah.
Like and it's the same as it was 20 years ago, 15 years ago. Like you just almost can't tell that same thing is there, and you just and that's I think why it's on number 46, because you can revisit that festival every year and it takes you back. It's all the memories. It's almost like Christmas in August.
That's cool. That's really special.
It really
that
is.
speaks a lot to the community that you guys live in.
It's really like Mark said, it's exciting as it was the first time. I know when Steve and I first did it, we were all excited to get to play in front of a big crowd, our home crowd. And I remember we were even thinking, boy, I hope we get to do this another time or two. Not even 40 years later would still be doing this and everything. And I want to say that all the songs Steve has brought to the band, he does the homework, the legwork. He brings it to us, makes our job easy, really. Because he's the one who, and he brings the song, shows us, what the idea he wants to do with it and everything, and then we all work to bring it to life.
Yeah,
he is the one who is mainly responsible for all the music, and we can probably do what, Steve, 3-4 hours of nonstop Italian.
We could even do the show in not even in English. We could do the show.
Yeah, we can do it. And that's all because of him. It really is. And I want to, make sure everybody knows this is the man that is responsible. I mean, he named the band, he formed the band. And it's been a joy to play 40 years sometimes.
Yeah, they put up with my ideas and we make it work, and you sit there and you think, like, what's the difference? What makes the band the difference? And I think we all would have a different answer for that, and so other people would too. But if you come, Stephanie, there are two things I'm going to have you do if you come to the festival some year. In one show, I want you to stand on the back of the stage behind us, and I want you to watch the crowd.
Okay.
When the agents come in, they say, listen, we want you to see one of the bands that we have up here. They said, don't go down front to watch them. I want you to come up on the stage. I want you to watch the crowd. The second show, I want you to go down in the crowd. And boy, will you have stories about both, because the dynamic and the energy. Well, again, if you watch the video, you get a sense of it. But, it's just the people are just so warm and receptive. Now, I think that some of it's, in other words, the energy, the Italian feel, Chris was talking earlier, these are kids of kids. In other words, these people were raised on Amici for some way, if you want to think of it those ways. But the point is that the energy that's there's a spirit that's kind of uncontainable, and it's indescribable. Because we go to some other festivals and we'll be playing our what's off, and people are like, "That's nice," and they go, "Oh," and you think that like it wasn't anything, and they go, "Oh, you guys were great." I'm thinking, like, but the expression of how it happens in different places. In New York they have the cameras, the phones, running with people watching in Italy. In some of the other places it's quieter, but they just want to hear the music. In Clarksburg, look out. I mean, it's like Times Square in New York in front of the stage, every night.
That's cool.
And it's funny. There could be like a show, and then everybody just disperses, and the streets are, basically empty in front of the stage. When we hit the 10 o'clock hour or whatever time we play, as soon as we start, bam! I mean, it's like they come out of the woodwork. It's like, where were you people? But it's a truly good experience. We're blessed and we're humbled by our experience in being able to do what we have been doing for 40 years. We would like to continue to do it as long as life lets us do it. And we're open to doing the new experiences. We've done New York, we've done Atlanta, we've done Washington D.C., just a variety of experiences. We need to get back in the studio too, so that's one on the to-do lists. And of course, like our album "Rock in the Streets," it's been well received with a lot of people, which is called Amici, AMICI, Rock in the Streets. And even getting the stuff on, these days, like, in the old days, you either sold a 45 or you sold cassettes or whatever you sold. Now it's like everything's digital. So, you can find this on all the digital, music streaming platforms and things like that. And, that makes the backyard, the Amici backyard, like the world now.
That's true. That does.
Even doing what you do with what we're doing right now, I don't think the ancestors ever thought, our ancestors, no matter who they are, whether Italian or not, I don't think they had the one iota of a thought to say, one day people are going to be talking about us because we're a big deal.
Yeah, that's true. Especially with the smaller sort of media that's available now between podcasting and all of that kind of stuff, it spreads a lot more.
Yeah. And you have a very popular podcast. I see people sharing it and linking it, all kinds of folks, all over the place. And I see it shared. I'm going like, wow, okay, so these people know then, and you know, and it kind of unites us in a way that we're kind of like all working as a team now.
For sure.
When you think about it, and but I think like what you do and what others do similarly, I think it's probably right up there with live television, or even sometimes surpasses it, because there are generations who would use their phones more than they would their televisions.
Sure, definitely. Yeah. I've created this podcast, and I sometimes feel like I'm back in college because of the amount of research that I have to do, and then I'm typing a script, and like, boy, it's a good thing I love this.
Well, you're running a TV production basically.
Sure.
And you're the producer, the writer, the creator, the sustainer, and we're doing the same kind of thing in terms of music, and
it's like we're all in the same basket, just different pieces of fruit.
we're all taking a piece of it and doing something. I try to make sure that that the band stays visible, not just in West Virginia, but through all these media posts and things like that, podcasts. We're playing on some of the radio stations, it's just good. And again, right before we left for New York, I had to make sure I had a website that was up and active and moving. And one crashed, and I had to redo it like 2 days or 3 days before I left for New York. And because you can't put it on a business card if there's
that's true.
nowhere to go. So you have to do all kinds of things. And like the Columbus Citizens Foundation had a beautiful gala on Saturday night of that weekend. We didn't go, but they said, "Can you send us something?" I said, "What do you want us to send you?" And they said, "Well, do you have CDs?" I'm thinking, like, do people even use CDs now? I don't know. So apparently that crowd were open to CDs. So then I called the factory really fast in New Jersey and said, get us our CD and send it directly over there to the Columbus Citizen Foundation. So and they were so happy. They gave 200 CDs they gave out to the people that were there.
Oh, wow.
So in 200 households, if they're playing CDs, there's an Amici sound or song somewhere going on, maybe while they're stirring the pasta on Sunday. I don't know.
For sure.
But we met a lot of nice artists and a lot of wonderful people, but it was a great experience, and we're ready for more.
So do you guys have a hit that everybody wants to hear, whether it's in Clarksburg, like that one song that everybody is like, yeah, they're playing it kind of thing?
Anybody want to chime in on this one?
I say Chetaluna.
Chetaluna Metsumare.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
You always have to play that twice. We usually play it. We play it like the
beginning and end
song, maybe third song, and then we end up like playing it at the end again, because everybody like Steve was saying, especially in Clarksburg, people want to dance in the streets, and they do anyway. But when we play that, they just go crazy.
It's like 200 people in a circle in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
Oh, how cool!
Yeah, and
you guys need to have the drone come over and like take pictures and video of you guys playing and people dancing, or even at the river. I think that would be cool with the boats coming up and get some aerial shots of that.
That's great. We'll have to do that. I have some friends with some drones, cameras and things like that. But I think that Chetaluna Metsumare, the way we do it is highly aggressive and highly energetic, which sparks more participation. But one of the funny things is at some point I say, we do the Tarantella Napolitana, first, and then we segue into this Chetaluna Metsumare. And before we get into it, some years I've said, and now for the national anthem of Clarksburg for Labor Day weekend, and we start singing Chetaluna Metsumare.
Oh, that's cool.
The other song everybody really loves to hear us play, and we a lot of time for a lot of years we ended with it, or we played at the end a lot of times, but everybody, like, even though it's Coming to America by Neil Diamond, and everybody loves to hear Coming to America, because I don't know if you're familiar with the song. It brings up the whole thing about the immigration and our, because we're that far. It was like our grandparents.
Right. We're 2 generations away.
Our grandparents were still born in Italy. So the immigration part, the part of everybody coming over, like Steve was saying, my grandmother used to tell the stories about how they lived in the mining camp.
Mm.
And that's how the pepperoni rolls started. They put it was a way to have bread and meat in a lunch bucket that didn't go bad. Turkey or something like that's not going to last all day. So a lot of those things even started out that way, and they would always talk about the mining camps and stuff. So they started out in very, very humble beginnings, and even the neighborhoods and stuff that we were from. I mean, I remember, like, even when I was a kid, as teeming as those neighborhoods were with people, I don't want to say they were poor, but they were simple. And things were, it was a simpler time anyway. I mean, not most families had one car, not multiple vehicles. And, and that's, I always joke with Steve, there's a theater in the town of Clarksburg called the Robinson Grand. They still bring in, if you look up the Robinson Grand Theater, they still have a lot. It's been brought back, and they're doing a lot of things there. National acts coming in, and we've been lucky enough to be asked to play there several times. And
nice.
And joke was be like, could you imagine? Because our families knew each other. And
okay.
I mean, we're actually cousins, and
we're distant cousins.
Yeah. So, it was like if I would have told my grandmother, one day, me and Steve, like little Stevie Peachner, how they talk or whatever. It's like said one day we're going to play the Robinson, and they'd like, how
out of here.
Like, yeah, big shot. Like they would not even believed it in a sense. They would have, because at those times, before the Italian festival and those things, I mean, the Italian community was a tight knit Italian community, and we had the bakeries around Clarksburg, the bread and stuff. Forget about it. The best, but
yeah,
several of them around. Tomorrow's, Nunzio's, this, and I could go on and on. There's a lot of bakeries, like I said, a lot of food, a lot of restaurants. That's what it's all about there. But it still was on a grassroots level. And then when they started the Italian festival 46 years ago, I think that brought all that to light to the rest of the community.
Yeah.
Surrounding areas became more familiar with the Italian American culture, just the songs and the specific foods. It brought a lot of light to that,
That's cool.
Yeah. So it's a lot more popular now than it used to be, as far as it let a lot of other people in besides just everybody that was Italian.
Yeah, exposes the culture to a variety.
Yeah.
I love hearing the little things about food. So when you were talking about the pepperoni rolls in Denver, Colorado, which is, where most of the Italians went to in Colorado, we have a thing called North Denver cannoli. And it's bread with a sausage and a pepper in it. And, of course, when you think cannoli, you think the dessert. Well, I mean, we have cannolis in Colorado too, but it was a North Denver cannoli, and I believe it was made by the Carboni family here. And he would create them and serve them at like nightclubs for people to snack on. They're just really almost like pigs in a blanket, that size. But yeah, it's an Italian sausage, pepper, and it's yeah. And so people, when you're like, like for me, honestly, this is going to sound crazy, but when I think of a cannoli, I go to bread and sausage because that's just like it's like a staple out in Denver, the North Denver cannoli. And so it's just cool to, it's different in all the regions and across America, but there's a thread that connects it in a way.
Yes.
Which is cool.
Yes. That's what I was saying. Like even in New York, it was like in Clarksburg, everybody there's always lines. We say a lot of times we say Vriti, my grandmother, and them, they use this, they kind of slang things up a little bit.
Sure.
But or Friti, even now they actually part of the Italian board and they have free tea Sunday. So like once a month, every third Sunday, right?
Right. Yeah. Right in front of the office, and people. There's a big drive-through on Main Street.
Drive through on Main, pick them up. So if I'm in town, I mean, I'm going. You know.
And the year.
They start and go till they run out, and they pretty much run out every time. So you got to get there. But
the
you know,
year, as I said, the year COVID hit.
Yeah.
The only thing they did, I don't know if you remember this, Mark. The year COVID hit, we didn't have a festival, but they did have free tea. Well, people went nuts because there was no festival, but so like they had to get it out of their system or something.
Had to participate somehow.
All the streets into the downtown were loaded with cars. We had to have some direct traffic. We couldn't make them fast enough because we had them ready. All we did was just hand them into the cars, and they paid at one point. And so we, may have any contact, but we did what we could do. But people were going nuts over them though.
Even
that's cool.
Right out in the street, so you're getting them hot off the press.
And,
But it's like you said with the differences. It's like then when we went to New York, instead of it being more like the free teas that they serve in Clarksburg or the Italian Festival's doing, and there's some other places around there that do it too. It's more like donut shaped, it's round, like. And when we went to New York, they had the Zeppeli, and it was just more of the ball.
Yeah.
But fried dough with the sugar, it's still that same taste. It's different, but the same.
But the same, yeah. It's really cool how that happens. Yeah. It's amazing. Well, this is great. Thank you guys so much again for joining, and I enjoyed meeting everybody officially now. And I'll plug all of your stuff on the podcast, post those videos and everything. Yeah. And this was great. And I can't wait to see. I know you guys are going to be there in October for sure.
We hope.
Yeah.
If we do, we'll let you in on it and connect somehow. And then when you get a chance, and anybody who's listening, check us out in Clarksburg, West Virginia. Their festival, our festival here has a website. It's WVIHF.com, West Virginia Italian Heritage Festival, WVIHF.com. It's Labor Day weekend, but not Labor Day. Okay. But actually, there are some pre-events that start the Sunday, the weekend, it's Saturday of the weekend before, because they do a pasta cook-off contest.
Ooh,
so there's some stiff competition on that. And then there are things like award ceremonies and things, scholarships that are given, and golf tournaments, and a variety of things that happen the week before leading into the festival. And a lot of famous people have been, Frankie Avalon, all kinds of people have been here to perform. Jody Messina, just a variety. Joe Piscopo was with us in New York.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And he had remembered coming to Clarksburg, and so we talked to him, and at the end they sang New York, and I wasn't going to go down into the street to sing with them, but he called me down there. You tu vieni qui, and I came down and they sang, and I thought, it's funny, people here were watching the whole thing. So it's been really good. But you know what? I don't care what you say. There's something about the Italian culture. There's something about it and everybody says it about their own culture. So I'll say it about mine. There's something about being Italian. We're not bland.
No, we definitely are.
One other thing I wanted to say is that when it comes to the festival, as far as looking at things online, the year that COVID, when Stephen mentioned COVID, which we don't want to get into all that.
That's another show.
Yes.
But during that year that we couldn't play during COVID, we actually went to the Robinson Green Theater that I was talking about, that we've done some live shows there since. But and that theater goes way back. That's another whole story. We all remember that theater as young kids and stuff. And but we played virtually that
for 3 days.
We did 3 shows, right?
Three days. Yeah, 3 shows. We did the show a day. Yeah.
And we obviously played with no audience during that time.
We played to an empty theater, but online.
So, oh my gosh.
So all that footage, and what was different was, because we didn't have a festival and people wanted a festival in Clarksburg so bad, it was multiple days televised on television, And because there was no live, we played, but like to an empty theater, but you could still see us perform, hear the songs that you hear. And then in between, there were other acts, and the other acts were also playing. And then they like all kind of footage with old photos from past schools, and all that is still online. Steve, you can probably tell them how to.
Yeah, some of it's still there. Yeah,
and that captures a lot of what our festival is about virtually.
Yeah, I bet your audience really appreciated that as well, especially during that time when.
Yeah, and some called in with video memories. They would do like a little video, and they'd send. I remember with this and so we had Benjamin DeFazio got all that stuff together and put it all. So basically we had 3 days of a TV production that we did, and again, pioneering in journeying through something that we had no idea what it was. But you know what? We'll keep going forward.
For sure.
We've got to, because that's what our ancestors want us to do.
Exactly. They would be very proud of all of us.
Yeah. Like, keep going. You're not done yet. Keep going.
Exactly. Yep. Perfect. Well, I will. I'll add that link for the festival to the show notes of the podcast,
Sure.
definitely, along with everything else. So, yeah. Well, again, it was so nice to meet you guys, and I think I'm gonna work on making a plan out to get out there to Clarksburg. So that'll be great.
Let us know. We'll get you ready.
Thanks for having us.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you guys. All right.
All right. See y'all.
See ya.
All right.